Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for March 6, 2018, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Well, welcome everybody for what I promise will be an exciting meeting this evening. A couple announcements to begin, and I'll start as just a public service announcement to remind people that Saturday, May 5th, 2018, at the Fisher School, we will have a household hazardous waste collection. It will be from 9 a.m. to noon, 12 p.m. And there will be no charge for oil, car batteries, antifreeze, propane tanks, fluorescent bulbs. However, tires will not be included at this collection event. We will have this information on the town website, and the selectmen will make a point of mentioning it at least 6 or 7 more times before May 5th. The second announcement is actually a proclamation for Eagle Scout. This is one of my most favorite things to do as a selectman, but unfortunately I lost the bet, and Vice Chairman Gallivan will read the proclamation. Mark?
Yep, Eagle Scout proclamation. Whereas Brendan Carlin has been a member in good standing of the Mayflower Council Troop 8080, Boy Scouts of America, and received his Eagle Scout rank on January 25th, 2018. And whereas Brendan Carlin has served his troop by displaying perseverance, strong moral character, and commitment to community service. And whereas the Eagle Scout Award will be presented to Brendan Carlin and an Eagle Court of Honor to be held on March 17th, 2018 at 5 p.m. at the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. And whereas Brendan Carlin has made an exemplary contribution to his community through his Eagle Scout Service Project by constructing and installing 2 benches at the Carolyn Woodard Memorial Playground. And whereas the highest ideals of the Boy Scouts of America have been upheld by Brendan Carlin, and by these significant achievements, he has brought great honor to his troop and the town of Walpole. Now, therefore, we, the Walpole Board of Selectmen, congratulate Brendan Carlin for his solid and continuous record of accomplishment and contribution to the service of the town of Walpole, and in particular, commend him for his attainment of the highest Boy Scout honor, Eagle Scout. The board further expresses to him their best wishes for continued happiness and success.
Great, thank you. He's a member of the robotics team.
He is. I know Brendan through the robotics program. He's been on the team for a couple of years and has done a great job.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention today, unfortunately for the town of Walpole, is Tom Gregory, our assistant town administrator's last day. I know we'll get into that in a minute, but on behalf of the board, we want to wish him the very best as he takes on town administrator duties in Spencer, Massachusetts. Okay, we're going to begin tonight with the quarterly report from our fire chief, Tim Bailey.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jim. Tonight I'm here to give my quarterly. The last time I was here was on December 5th. We finished out the year with 3,338 emergency calls, 3,731 inspections and permits for total calls for service of 7,069, or 19.3 requests for service per day in 2017. In 2018 to date, we have 634 emergency responses and 222 inspections and permits. Last Friday, as you know, was a very busy day for us. We had 41 calls with the wires and the storm that came through town. We had 8 homes that were struck by trees. And as late as yesterday, and it's been a busy week. Yesterday we had an incident at the Elm Street School where we had high carbon monoxide levels in the preschool center. Through a collaborative effort of police, fire, DPW, and everyone else in town, we were able to contain that situation and render it safe and put the kids back in there today. So Like I said, we've been very busy. Fires, we've had 9 fires and structures since the beginning of the year. We've been to mutual aid to the towns of Norwood, Westwood, and Norfolk. Ambulance receipts, $1,529,000. The ambulance has been extremely busy, and collection for FY18 to date is $799,356. As far as my budget goes, my current budget, most of my lines are doing pretty good. The only line that I'm having some difficulty with is my other professional services. Right now, it looks like I'm going to run about $13,000 short. That line is the line that we actually pay Comstar for our ambulance receipts. So when our ambulance receipts are high, like they are right now, it dibs into the 4% that I pay to Comstar. So that number is much higher than we had anticipated because of the collection. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I do have other lines that I could take from at the end of the year if need be, but we are watching it as we move forward. Negotiations, we assisted with the dispatcher negotiations, which will be coming up later on, and the fire negotiations are still ongoing. The AFG grant, which I've mentioned in the past, we received the grant last year for our training, for the RIT training. That'll be starting at the end of this month, and that'll be concluding in the month of May. That'll be a pretty intensive 40 hours of training over that time frame for all of our personnel. We've also applied for another health and wellness grant in the amount of $108,669. That's with this year's cycle, and that'll be for a health and wellness program for our personnel at the new station. SAFE grants, in February we received $4,308 for the SAFE grant, which is what we use for the schools in the fall, in the months of September and October. And we also received $2,615 for the senior SAFE program, which we do at various times throughout the year in coordination with the Council on Aging. Detail billing, which we took over last December, is in very good standing. All of our bills have been collected. We've had a 300% increase over last year with regards to details. In order to keep the community safe, we've had a lot of projects that have required us to have extensive details at. And last year we collected $36,413. To date, we're at $114,029, and we actually billed out a large bill today. So that number will continue to go up, and I'll keep the board up to date as we move forward. Fire prevention remains extremely busy. The deputies involved with most of the commercial projects. I help him with the overflow on that when necessary. He's also involved with the 304s, which is all of the establishments that serve alcohol have to be inspected yearly, and they are almost complete with those. He also did the inspection for MCI Cedar Junction. That was done back in December. He spent a whole day up there inspecting the facility along with their staff. This past week, we met with representatives from the schools, the police, the town administrator's office, and other town departments to discuss school safety. The new fire station is still on schedule. The floors were done last week. The doors will be done over the next 2 weeks for the garage doors. The outside work will be commencing shortly as soon as the weather breaks, and we're looking forward to moving in. Right now they're telling us end of May, beginning of June, and we are looking forward to that. Our administrative staff in the office has also been very busy with the new station with regards to inspections, the quotes and the POs. All of that stuff comes through our office, and then it goes back out to the project manager. So, we also work with the town hall staff as well on that. Numerous meetings as part of the process, and those meetings have been increasing as we near the end of the project, as we're trying to tighten up loose ends that still remain. On the apparatus, the tower ladder was ordered through the MAP Collective Purchasing Program. A1 was in an accident last week. It was minor in nature. It was actually the result of someone texting. The ambulance drove in front of them, and they didn't see it, and they just hit the gas and drove into us. So that is the new ambulance that's being looked at now, and like I said, it's still in service, but that did happen. Training. Chief Fire Officer, the deputy, completed that program. It was a 6-month program. Mentioned it to the board a couple of weeks ago. New fire code orientation, new building code orientation. I attended the FCAM Fire Chiefs Association's professional development program last week. We've done training with the BLS Basic Life Support Refresher, the ALS Advanced Life Support Refresher. We did ice rescue training with all of our personnel. Only one group was able to get out on the ice, but the others were all trained in the station on the donning and doffing of the suits, which is the on and off of the suits, and we're all up to speed with that. We've done driver training, which is an ongoing program, foam training, pump training, and ladder training. Those are all things that have taken place over the last 3 months. On the personnel front, Kevin Mahoney retired on January 29th after 31 years of service. Firefighter EMTP paramedic Stephen Tyner resigned on January 19th after 14 years with us to take a position with Millis Fire. Millis Fire is starting their ALS program in that department, and as a resident of that town, he wanted to be involved with that, so he left us to move over there. Firefighter EMTP Benjamin Foley graduated from the academy on January 22nd and has been assigned to Group 4. Firefighter Matt DeFont, who was also a medic, resigned on February 8th to take a position with Norwood, which is his hometown. Firefighter paramedic Christopher Rogers resigned on February 27th to take a job with the Spokane, Washington Fire Department. He'll be going to their basic training next month. His reasons for leaving was family related, and that's why he chose to move on. Firefighter Gallivan, who we hired some time ago, back in September, will be starting the fire academy on March 29th, and he'll be graduating on June 15th. And last week, our new recruits were Matt McGrain, who will actually be starting on March 17th, Matt Rogoski, Matt Gately, Jeff Daniels, Brendan O'Neill, and Keith Hamilton. The last 5 that I've read to you have completed their physicals. We're setting up their physical abilities test, which is through the state. That'll be next week. And after that, we'll be able to put their names in for slots in the Fire Academy, which right now is in August, so they won't be, in theory, out until October or November of later on in the year is when they'll graduate from the academy, hopefully. Injuries, we've had no injuries at the station this quarter. In the community end of things, we did the gift wrapping at the Senior Center and at Harrington House during the Christmas season. And open burning is January 15th to May 1st. There will be no extensions granted by the state, so anyone wanting to do open burning has to get a permit from us. They're $15, and that ends on May 1st.
Terrific. Very thorough. Questions, Ann?
Yes. First of all, I love the words Don and Doff. What caused the carbon monoxide incident at the school?
So there was a malfunction of one of the rooftop units on the roof as a result of the storm the other day.
And the alarm system worked?
Yes, they had a carbon monoxide detector that went off. The students hadn't entered the building yet, that section of the building where we had the issue, and the staff was the only ones that had been in there. We cleared the staff medically with our personnel to make sure that they were all set before we left.
Okay. The other professional services cost, which is ComStar's fee that they charge us for billing, is that
That's correct? That's 4% for ComStar, and it's the $10,000 for our medical control. I have $40,000 in that line for this year's budget.
Is there a reason why we don't, because they don't net the net amount to us, they don't deduct, ComStar doesn't deduct that automatically off the top?
No.
And send us the net, they give us the gross?
Mm-hmm.
They remit the gross receipts to us, and we
We
calculate.
pay them the 4%. We get a bill from them every month.
Right. So, I mean, I think we should think of it, there should be an accounting mechanism in place where it shouldn't be a line item with a set dollar amount, because it's purely a function of gross receipts, which I guess that's beyond your bailiwick, but that's something that we probably should work out with somebody, because it shouldn't be a budget item that is considered over budget when in fact when it's really not. So that's something that I think we should
Jim, can we take a
address.
look at that? Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mark?
No, I'm good. I sort of took a peek inside the building the other day, and it's coming along really nicely, so.
Yes.
I'm sure the guys will miss the tent all winter, and
We're looking forward to getting in the new building.
David? All set. Good. Nancy?
I'm all set.
Very thorough this time.
This time.
it's time.
This time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Paul. Police Chief Carmichael, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. First on the personnel, we still have one officer that's out injured on duty from an injury that they sustained last year. Has had a couple of surgeries due to a broken wrist after falling on the railroad tracks, chasing somebody that had some substance abuse issues. But in any event, we anticipate that that officer will be back, hopefully the prognosis within the next month. That's the only officer that we have out IOD right now. I want to pass on our condolences to Lieutenant William Fitzgibbons and his family. He passed away. He's a 30-year veteran of the Walpole Police Department, achieving the rank of lieutenant. And a couple of interesting things we found in his personnel file that we still had laying around was that he saved a choking baby at one point, a young boy from drowning, and a man that had been beaten in that had been jumped at one point in his career. So it was nice to go back and look at some of the impacts that he made, especially Deputy Chief McKenzie and I had the opportunity to even work with him. So our condolences go out. Want to just mention overdose. I gave you guys the overdose stats. Currently, we are, as you know, we've been tracking it more closely since 2011. We're at 168 since 2011, with 31 fatalities and 73 administrations of Narcan, either by fire department, police department, and bystander. This year so far, we've had 6 overdoses with 0 fatalities. Some notable incidents. We had a couple of armed robberies this year so far. The first one was at Dunkin' Donuts on Route 1 in Union. It was a forced robbery where the individual forcibly took control over one of the clerks, stole money out of the till, and then fled on foot, got into a U-Haul truck and took off on Route 1. Fortunately, he did another robbery the next morning in Mattapan. Boston PD ended up seeing a U-Haul truck. They ended up getting into a pursuit with it. That U-Haul truck stopped. The individual bailed out, and they were able to catch up and arrest that person. Turns out that that is the same individual that robbed our Dunkin' Donuts. He's a career criminal, 54-year-old male from Dorchester. And our detectives worked the case very thoroughly, and were able to go in and interview him as well, B3. The second one, we also had an armed robbery right across the street at the center pool. This was a mom, female, that was with her child, and they were getting into their vehicle after going to the playground, and an individual approached, demanded money, did show a firearm, and robbed that woman of cash. That person fled on foot. They went down School Street and basically towards East Street. Detectives are actively working that case. We have pulled all of the video from the MBTA buses and the event that person, we thought that they might have gotten on one of the buses. There was a delay in reporting because the woman was not from Walpole, was not familiar with the area, so she had to go home to where she was staying before she was able to call the police. Follow up on Bike Life. If you recall, a couple of years ago we had issues with Bike Life. Those are the ATV riders that were kind of wreaking havoc in West Walpole up and down Renmar Road. Those are the same individuals that were involved in the expressway incident last week, the kind of a debacle there that where they were riding ATVs out on the expressway. In any event, we had several ATVs and dirt bikes stolen in Walpole in the past quarter. And we've tied those thefts to individuals from Bike Life that were also involved in that situation. We have 3 arrest warrants with Boston PD through Sergeant Humphreys, who we work very closely with. They've already arrested 2 of the 3, and we're looking for the 3rd. So there's a good follow-up on that. There was a crash into a house on Gill Street, and I mentioned this one. It was a hit and run because our officers worked very diligently on this one, and actually the next day we were able to gather up some witnesses, one that was able to give some very good information, and we were able to track a vehicle back to a rental company and actually located the vehicle at Logan Airport with significant front-end damage to it. And then the detectives took it another step in even identifying the suspect, who actually was from New Mexico. they were able to get in touch with him before he got in the plane, and so that case is going to be closed out as well. So they just did a good job on that. They did recover some identifying debris at the scene that helped the officers with that case there. Barricaded subject, we had an individual that was wanted for murder. He was wanted for a homicide that occurred in Boston at a Burger King in Dorchester. The individual had shot 2 people, killing 1. That individual was believed to be staying in Walpole and at an apartment. There was some joint surveillance conducted between Boston PD and Walpole, and we were able to put eyes on that individual who went into a known apartment up there. We were able to move in, evacuate the building. We were able to extract 1 female out of the apartment, at which time that individual barricaded himself in, and that caused the next 4 or 5 hours of negotiations between the police and that individual. I can tell you right now that Officer Rich Haber, who's one of our trained hostage or crisis negotiators, was on the phone with this individual for a couple of hours, and he is personally responsible for talking this guy out. He did come out. He emerged from the apartment a couple of times, almost acting like he had a gun on him, and then he backed in and barricaded himself again. So we were persistent, and at some point we finally got him to come out and surrender, and it was just a great job by Officer Haber, Walpole police officers, as well as Metro SWAT we had come out, the Boston Police Fugitive Unit, Homicide Unit, a lot of interagency, joint agency cooperation there. It worked out perfectly, actually, in the end. So just want to mention some commendations. Officer Haber, on that same night, he actually saved an 18-year-old young man who had overdosed, administered two doses of Narcan and conducted CPR, along with dispatcher Brittany Wren, who also gave emergency medical dispatch instructions and helped save that young man's life. So Rich Haber had a good night that night. Want to mention Andrew McKenzie, Deputy Chief McKenzie's brother. He actually found a firearm in the middle of the street last week while he was out jogging, and he checked that weapon. It ended up being that it was loaded, and he picked it up, took it home, and we were ultimately able to find out who owned that firearm, but we want to mention him because that could have been obviously a tragic situation that was averted because of him stepping up and doing something that day, so we appreciate that. Longview Farm, as you know, is closing indefinitely. We will Jim and I met with Leslie Suggs last week, and we'll continue to keep the board updated as to what goes on with that. Essentially, in the end, they're trying to reassess what the future model at Longview Farm is going to look like, and we have no idea what that is at this point, but it seems that they're working towards getting there. There are no kids left in the residency side. The day school is still open for some of the students. School violence response, I put this in here just because, as you know, there was a active shooter situation that occurred in Parkland, Florida. The Walpole community is obviously now wondering, and rightfully so, how prepared we are to deal with these types of situations in our schools, police and fire. And as a result, we've had multiple meetings with community members, met with the school committee. We're meeting with the school committee again Thursday night to go over some of the stuff, our critical response, what training we do, and even future recommendations, because every time one of these things happens, there's a lot of lessons learned and things that we can use that can help us adapt to the situations that you see out there. So we look forward to that discussion. I think what brought most of the attention on this case, as opposed to other active shooter situations, is that the red flags. There was red flag after red flag after red flag in this situation that should have been dealt with, and this situation could have been avoided, I think. So that's why this has come up. We are going to be, we joined a pilot program for human trafficking. This is going to take place because we have our 3rd hotel in Walpole, 1 motel, 2 hotels will be open, and with proposals also online for more. But while most people that go to hotels have best intentions, we can't ignore the fact that hotels do bring transient crime in, specifically human trafficking incidents, And we have joined a program where we're going to be using investigative techniques to follow up with this. And we're going to be working jointly with other departments, 10 other departments in this area, so that we can focus on human trafficking that's occurring. Community policing, our RAD program, Rape Aggression Defense, our simulation is tomorrow night. We had 20 women sign up, and they'll be completing that course tomorrow. I put a couple of pictures in there. One's the Ride to School program. Had a couple of girls win that program there, and a picture of Philip Wapolis, who was this quarter's Walpole Community Hero. Philip has been fighting cancer for his second time in his young life. He's a student at Boyden School, and a real fighter. The poor kid, he just missed school for a year. He had to be in isolation, basically quarantined, because he couldn't be around anything that would, that he could attract some type of any other illness associated. So he's our hero for this month, and we got to give him a ride to school and meet with all his classmates when he got there, and they gave him a nice welcome when he got there. New station, April 4th is our moving date. Counting the days and the minutes. So our biggest challenge will be getting dispatch in there, and then our property and evidence, because that's maintaining chain of custody and everything. And Detective Sergeant Kelleher and all the detectives are doing an awesome job by making sure that this transition is going to go as smoothly as possible as far as that's concerned. So we're really looking forward to it. Can't wait, but April 4th is looking like our day. Stats for Longview, I gave you guys the quarterly report stats. Biggest issues last year, as I mentioned before, overdoses, mental health meaning suicidal ideation, attempted suicide. Our sections, section 12s and 35s, increased significantly last year, up over 100% increase. Same thing with OUI drugs, partially because of the opiate epidemic, partially because of marijuana, legalizing marijuana, and people still thinking they can drive behind the wheel when they've been using that drug. And domestic violence kind of tops the most significant issues we had last year. The Longview, as you can see, our stats are significantly lower because of their moving out. And if I could just spend 1 minute, as you know, the department works very hard on community policing initiatives. One thing we haven't had the opportunity to do yet is introduce you to our newest school resource officer, Tom Hart, and his sidekick, Rebel. If you want to come up, Tommy, just introduce you guys. Rebel's done a great job of assisting our department in engaging the community. You know, when Tommy goes into the schools, you can actually see the effect that that Tommy has, but also Rebel, on the kids in our schools. And you know, it's even if it's a kid might be having a bad day, and it's that one split second they see them in the hallway and they come up and pat the dog or put a smile on their face, then you know we look at that as a win. So can't say enough about it. Tommy's done a great job as our second school resource officer, and it's a good addition. So we have to thank Golden Opportunities for Independence, who's right here in Walpole, who trains service dogs and give us the ability. I think it's a unique thing that we do here in Walpole. But he's good therapy, I think, for our schools and the community policing stuff side of things. So
thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
They donated Rebel to the school.
Yes. That's it.
Ann?
No, I'm struck by the dog because I know that every child just about loves a dog, and I think, especially for a high school kid, just who might be having problems, especially in this day and age of violence and emotional instability, I think it, like you said, if it can help someone who's troubled, to have
it's
that.
Actually, it's great to actually see it work. Like, you know, we stop up there and you'll see Tommy in the hallway, and if Rebel's there, it brings a crowd, and it makes it easy for him because it's the icebreaker. You know, they have something to relate to and to talk about. So it doesn't matter if it's kindergarten or a senior in high school, it works. So
Thanks. That's it.
David? All set. Mark?
Nope, no questions.
good.
A couple things. First of all, Officer Hart, the reports that we get are so positive with you and what you're doing, so congratulations. Chief Carmichael, Selectman Salvatore, and I did participate in a candlelight vigil last Sunday night on the active shooting incident, not only down in Florida, but in general. I was remiss in not thanking Lisa Fair and her team for arranging for that vigil. It was very moving and very appropriate, and it was nice to have an outlet for our community to do something, even though the incident was 1,500 miles away. But it was very, very nice to have that. Regarding Longview, I know the stats are down, and I know that they are on a hiatus. On behalf of the board, I really hope they take this time to figure out what their mission is there and how they're going to achieve it. At the end of the day, that institution should be a wonderful growing opportunity for the kids there and really give them the opportunity for a leg up in life. And unfortunately, with the safety issues we've had for a number of years, they're not able to achieve that mission day in, day out. So fingers crossed that they'll figure it out. So.
I was gonna
Yep.
wait till new business or old business to talk about Longview, but I was wondering, where they're reinventing themselves or whatever it is that they say they're doing, have they invited us to the table to be a part of that?
Yes, actually, thank you for mentioning that. Leslie did say that she wants to meet with members of the board. I know Ann came down at one point a couple months ago, and she welcomes that. She wants to keep that open dialogue and keep the partnership with us. We know that we have to be maintain the partnership, or else it's just not going to work. They'll circle the wagons, and to us it gets worse. So.
Well, I'm wondering at the state level and their
Oh,
licensing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, with the
is
state
what
level.
I mean, because they can, we've seen it.
Oh, yeah. So, like DCF and
Yeah,
that
like
type of thing.
their licensing, who's, they didn't decide to reinvent themselves for no reason. So there's somebody that at a state level that's going to be guiding them that I think that we should be involved.
Yeah, part of it was when Benjamin Joan Wallace retired, and
Joan Wallace Benjamin.
Yeah.
Joan Wallace, one of the, and Leslie came in as the CEO. That during that transition, I think that's when they
Right.
looked at it as a good time to reassess and
Yeah.
take everything that's happened in consideration, and then try and figure out what the better model is, and really at the end of the day, what's best for the kids.
I mean, some of my concerns are the state is making a lot of moves right now as far as their facilities go. I mean, they're moving the Shattuck, completely moving it from its building to the East Newton campus at Boston Medical Center. And they're talking about opening and not opening Long Island again and rebuilding the bridge and what will become of there. That there's a lot of facilities changes that are going to be happening and possible reassigning, and what are each one of those facilities going to do in the future. That we are talking about a closed campus right now that is, open to the state.
Yep.
And I think as far as what they decide as a model that's going to be up there, that we need to be there at the state level and make sure that we need to be part of what happens and what they get licensed for. I mean, it's a
And I know
potential.
that they did have to turn in Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. As part of this, they had to turn in their their school license and everything, and they have to reapply for that. So
they don't have it right now.
They don't have it. They had to
So
turn
then
it in.
they're a free campus to potentially be opened up for whatever licenses they're looking for?
Let's not jump the gun yet.
I'm not jumping the gun,
Reach out
but,
to them.
huh?
I'll reach out to
Yeah.
the state. I already sent an email right now. I was playing phone tag with someone in the governor's office last week, and we just never connected with the storm.
I'd like
so.
the town to buy the facility.
I know.
It'd be,
It's already got structures.
yeah.
But I think it's something we should watch. We said from the beginning that co-ed wasn't a good idea.
Right.
How much, just to go along that, how much sway and input does the town have in terms of guiding?
Yeah.
I mean, even with our delegation, I mean,
0.
0?
Well, I think this is where we
fought
really
long
need
and
to.
hard when we had issues. We fought long and hard on our opinion on not making it co-ed, and it fell, in many cases, on deaf ears.
And
And I-
not mixing younger kids with older kids.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're autonomous in
original-
terms
Right.
of their,
Yeah.
their operate outside the town.
Yeah.
Their original mission, their idea is great, but now especially knowing they don't have any licenses at all,
Right.
it just makes them an
Yeah.
open
So let's
campus.
stay all over that, Jim. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Great. Robin Chappelle. Let's talk textile recycling.
Does this mean you're gonna come redo my closets?
Sorry?
You're gonna redo my closets, textile recycling?
So tonight, I'm before you with some exciting, I think, recycling news. If you agree with it, the Board of Health discussed it, and so did the recycling committee members. But we have an opportunity to do curbside textile recycling and a little other things besides clothes. And we can sign a 3-year contract. It will cost us nothing. A van will come in. They think that they'll do about 2% of the town, that 2% of the people that will put out their clothes at any given day of the routes. They'll go through our same routes that we have. People will put it out at 7 o'clock right near their recycling bin. They actually have pink bags that they'll give out. They'll actually, if we say yes to the contract, they'll put out postcards letting everybody know about the program. And then it comes, there's 2 bags here. They'll mail every household in our recycling program 2 free bags with information. And
I think I know about 30 years worth of T-shirts I could put in there.
great. So it's not only could you put in clothes, but you can put in bags. You could actually put in plastic toys, anything that fits in a bag. They won't take anything loose. But if you don't have the plastic bags,
Give that
you
to
could
Nancy,
put out
she'll
any
need it
other
for
plastic bags with their name on it, Simple Recycling.
I'm gonna need all
This comes from another community. You could call them and ask them for, yeah, I have more bags.
I'm gonna need that one too.
We know, Nancy, we know.
You could actually ask them for more bags, and they'll mail you more bags. Anytime that people put out bags, they'll actually give you a bag in return. We're hoping that if you say yes tonight with the contract, the town of Norwood, actually their selectmen, just okayed the program, and they want to start both of our towns at the same time. We do know that, I gave you a little information, and I have some other for anybody else that's here. But basically, textiles make up about 6% of waste in the community, and only 85% of textiles are recycled all the time. We do have recycling textile bins at every one of our schools. So that was something that I was concerned about, and I talked to the schools before I talked to anybody else. And then I also talked to Simple Recycling, and they actually said that from where they do it around the country, that it doesn't really take, if somebody wants to donate their clothes to somebody, this program doesn't take it away. People will still do that. But this is for the people that won't go someplace and bring their clothes to somebody else. So it's a win-win situation. It doesn't cost us any money. They'll actually give us $20 a ton for every month for all the tons that we recycle.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it seems entirely like a win-win. Is there something that we don't know about that would not make it a win-win? Because it just
No,
seems...
so I talked to some of the other communities. Framingham's doing it, Brookline's doing it, and there isn't. Every once in a while they miss a stop, and a person can call them up, and they'll call that person back, and they'll make sure that they pick it up. So they said that it's all of the communities that I've talked to their programs have gone without a hitch. We'll give them the, our office has already worked on all the routes that they'd have to work with. We had town council look at the contract. They agreed to everything except that the one thing that if we say we're allowed to get out of it at any time, they don't want us to get out of it and then sign up with another
I see a
company.
three-year non-compete. That was actually going to be my second question. Why do they, if we decide to terminate the contract for, I don't know why we would, but let's say we did.
Because they didn't want
Well-
us to go to a competitor.
And their employees are probably,
No, I understand that. I'm curious, is 3 years does seem like a long time. So, and I'm not saying that's a deal breaker. I'm
You're
just curious.
Curious why?
Yeah, just curious
Yeah.
why.
Is
But
it because of the
is-
investment that they put into doing this?
If the
or-
investment, they have the employees, they're gonna have little vans. It's not gonna be big trucks that go around, so.
Are there other companies that do this?
I'm not aware of any. I saw this actually in the Beacon that the Framingham was starting it, and so I called and said, are you taking other companies? And then I researched it, and they told me other towns, and they told me which other towns they were doing.
Okay. And it's optional. Anyone in town who wants to put their bags out can, and people
That is
don't
in our
have to.
recycling trash program.
when can we start?
So we don't have a start date yet. We're hoping in May. Because they have to do the routes, we have to get the advertisement out, they have to mail the bags, so it'll take we're in March, 2 months.
Okay.
But I am concerned. I do think the 3-year non-compete, again, not the deal breaker, but it does, as time goes on, if other companies start to get into this business,
Right.
this puts the lock, it actually puts a monopoly on it. So does this get renewed periodically? Or is it just open-ended forever, and then if we ever do
It's
decide to use someone, if we ever want to use another company, 10 years from now, we would still be held to this 3-year?
Well,
No,
non-compete?
the
No.
3
We're
years
signing
up,
a
we can
3-year
renegotiate,
contract.
yeah.
We
This
could
is a
renew
3-year
it.
contract right now?
Yeah.
3 year,
Got it.
Just 3 years and out,
Perfect.
so we can reassess.
exactly.
Okay.
Or just, you know my phobia over contracts, so
I do.
why don't we make a note that at the end of the second year, we start looking at this contract, so we don't push it up to the month before we have to do something, okay?
Yeah,
Like all
that-
contracts.
that sounds
Okay.
great.
Awesome.
I authorize the town administrator to sign the contract with Simple Recycling.
Do we have a motion?
I'll second that.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
500. Thank you.
Great, thank you very
Great.
much.
Can I just hold
Well
on to these
done.
You
bags?
could hold, actually, I have.
Why does she get them?
Oh, because I have a lot of T-shirts to get rid of.
Thank you for researching this and getting this information, because it does seem like nothing but a benefit to the town.
Okay.
Great. Good, with the time, thank you very much, Robin. Outstanding job as always for you.
How many T-shirts do
No,
we have?
no. You still have a t-shirt.
That's true,
With the time being 7:45, we're gonna have a Siemens update. Michael? Do you know Mike?
It does, yeah, I do.
No, do you know Mike?
I have met him, and I can't remember.
See if I can do this without making, being too disruptive.
Quick introductions. I don't know if you know Selectman Regasta?
I think that we have met once.
Okay, I
Yes.
just want to make sure, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And we have met Selectman Mackenzie previously as well, and everybody else. So
Yes,
thank you
great.
very much for
Thank you
having
coming
me
in,
here.
Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I ran into Jim and to Eric and Mark, and they've asked me to stop by and give an update as far as what's going on. As folks know, our little project over on Coney Street is fairly obvious for anybody driving off of the highway, and thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about what we have going on and where we are in the overall project. So the project itself is about a 3-year project. And right now, where we are, you see it in this photo here. If you don't mind, I'd like to just drop.
Patrick, is that okay? Okay.
So folks can see it a little bit better. So what you're seeing here is one of the photos of our new building that's being built out front. The project consists of about 50% new building and about 50% of a substantial renovations inside of the building. So we had our groundbreaking in June of last year, and since that time, we've been going great guns with respect to renovating the site as well as the new building. So I did want to take a moment to talk a little bit about what's happening within Siemens. So Siemens has announced that we will be having a spin-off IPO for our Healthineers business. Our Healthineers business, I'm not going to read all of the numbers that are up here, is a substantial part of the overall Siemens organization. So we expect later this spring, somewhere before mid-year, to have our IPO, and that will be occurring. So this facility here will be becoming independent of Siemens. With that said, Siemens will still be a majority shareholder. The Siemens Healthineers is primarily focused in both in vitro and in vivo diagnostics products. That's where we focus. That's where our expertise is. We're considered to be one of the largest players in this field. We compete with the likes on the global stage of GE and Philips when it comes to the imaging side, and Abbott and Roche when it comes to the in vitro diagnostics side. For folks that are not familiar with in vitro diagnostics, that's where they draw your blood and they test it offline on an instrument. In vivo means outside the body, I'm sorry, in vitro over there, outside the body, to determine whether or not you have cancer, whether or not you have an infectious disease, those types of things. So we are one of the biggest players out there on the global stage. So we are, on the in vitro side, we are competing with Roche, Abbott, et cetera. When I was before you about 2 years ago, we talked about why we were going to be expanding our growth. One of the primary drivers for our expansion of our growth here in Walpole is the launch of a new testing platform on the industry. So this instrument has been launched. It is a groundbreaking instrument. It operates much faster than anything out there, has greater precision than anything that's out there, gives us a substantial competitive advantage in the marketplace. The other advantage is what's called STAT, short turnaround time for patient samples. So a patient comes in an emergency situation, you need to determine right away what their disease state is, and we have an instrument out there that tests it in a laboratory setting faster than anybody out there. So we've now launched that instrument, and we are placing these instruments in the field, and we are seeing the growth coming out of that already. So for folks that are not familiar with our facility over here on Coney Street, so our current state, we have greater than 700 employees at that site. We expect to grow over 700 more people on that site in the next 10 years. So that's what our anticipated growth is. Being a conservative company, that's not what we have committed to, and I'll talk about our commitment shortly. We're doing manufacturing and R&D at this site for three primary areas. One is referred to as in vitro, so immunodiagnostics, that's based upon the immunological response of the body, as well as point of care testing. So this is looking at the blood, direct blood analysis. So looking for blood gases, electrolytes, those types of things. And then the third is molecular. That's for measuring viral loading for things like HIV, hepatitis, et cetera, to determine whether or not the patient is actually getting better based upon the drug treatment regime that the doctor is prescribing. The facility here in Walpole is providing all of the consumable components that go into those laboratories for the testing. So we are not taking patient samples onto our site and doing testing and reporting results. That's what our customers do. We're providing all of the consumables that go into it. Our business model is much like a printer and ink. So we sell an instrument and we make a little bit of money. We sell the consumable components, and that's where we make more of our money. So that is the overall business model. The site here is about 82 acres of land, and today we have about 500,000 square feet. We are adding to that about another 146,000 square feet of new space. That is primarily office and some manufacturing as well. The overall approach is to move the office elements out of the existing footprint into a new office building that you see under construction here, and then allow us to expand the laboratory's manufacturing space into the existing office, hence all of the renovation work that's taking place. It's also important to understand the nature of our manufacturing is all clean room, I shouldn't say all, the majority of it is clean room manufacturing. For folks that are not familiar with clean room, this is a class 100,000 space, very low particulate level, low biological level, so that we do not contaminate any of the products that we are producing. Downside, quite expensive to build this type of space. So now let's talk about our commitments. Our commitment is to grow at least 400 jobs within the next 10 years. Since the TIF was offered to us and since the decision was made to expand, we have expand at this site. We have already hired over 200 full-time positions at this site. So we are well on our way to achieving our commitment already. The other area is we expect to spend $300 million on this expansion. To date, we've already paid our bills of over $60 million on the building, of which $350,000 has come directly back to the town in permitting fees and inspection fees. So that has already been paid back to the town. Other commitment that we had is to keep our spending local here. So when we look at trade contracts, we have over $54 million worth of trade contracts that were issued. These numbers are as of the end of January. So over $54 million worth of trade contracts, of which 97% have been issued locally here in Massachusetts, 2 of which are companies here in Walpole. So, what you're seeing in the video is just a drone flight. Currently, drone photography and drone video is the way to monitor a lot of different construction projects. So we have these types of fly-arounds every week or so to just record for history what the construction progress has been. Unfortunately, you see a wrapped building there. Last week, with our high winds, all of that exterior surface, that wrap was all blown off of the building. So today we are in the process of putting it all back on the building and continuing with our construction activities.
It wasn't the pink bags Nancy just took from the town?
It was not the pink bags, no. And by the way, I believe it's probably not Nancy's T-shirts she's referring to. It's probably somebody else's T-shirts. Who knows?
Probably.
The other thing that I would like to point out is, from our safety perspective, the number of construction hours. These numbers are based again, at the end of January. So we have had over 110,000 man-hours of construction activity from local trades already. Unfortunately, we did have an incident very early on in the project. A fellow, while turning a nut, the nut gave loose and his forearm struck an obstruction. He did get a couple of stitches. So he did have a laceration on his forearm. It's unfortunate, understandable, but we also focus on making improvements and learning from that.
Is
so
that the only TRIR that you had there?
That's the only TRIR as of the end of January. I believe that we have one under investigation now, which is a laceration on a hand, and that took place during a demolition. Mm-hmm. So we thought it was going to be a first aid, but it's being investigated as to whether or not it's going to be recordable. So with that said, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the town of Walpole for working with us as such a great partner. Without your efforts and without your support, we couldn't have brought this expansion here in Walpole. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ian?
It's a great presentation. I have no questions.
David?
I have a couple of questions. You indicated that there was $350,000 in inspection fees. Could you explain what you were saying?
So thus far, we've paid $350,000 of inspection costs as well as permit fees.
Okay, so the total permitting fees is over $1 million plus the $350,000. Wasn't part of the TIF an excusal of part of the inspection and permitting fees?
So the TIF itself included the total cost of the permitting fees, which is set at $250,000. So that has been paid. In addition to that, we also paid an additional $100,000 of inspection, so to bring in an independent inspector.
So the independent inspector, did we pay for, Mr.?
No, they're paying us
Okay.
the extra $100,000.
For the independent inspector.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you explain where the 200 positions came into be? Where was the expansion that created 200 jobs already?
So when we talk about 200 jobs, we would not have hired 200 people unless the decision was made to expand at this site. So that is the driving force for allowing us to start the hiring process. As far as if you go to the site today versus where we were before, what you'll find is that we have more people working from home as a discretionary. We have people working on compressed work weeks, and we have in many cases, doubled up people in offices to be able to execute this overall project.
So have the jobs mostly been on the executive or white-collar side versus the science and?
I don't have a breakdown of that, but I think it's fair to say that it is consistent with the profile that we have always had at the site.
When we toured the facility, there was a piece of equipment that had been delivered but not installed. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It was underneath the vats, underneath the large vats.
So I think you're referring to our large-scale formulation area and our filling lines, yes. So that filling line at this point has been installed and it is in full operation.
And how many jobs did the installation of that filling line add to?
I don't have that specific number.
Do you have an approximate number?
No, I don't.
How much did the installation of that filling line increase your capacity for the large scale?
That's a confidential piece of information that I can't share with you.
How many lines were in existence prior to the installation of that line?
Again, confidential information.
Well, there were two, right? And you added a third?
So you were not looking at all of our fill lines.
So did you add additional fill lines besides that one that we saw? We saw?
So I hesitate to answer that question. I don't understand the relevance of that question.
Well, the relevance is I'm trying to get, so you have made this assertion that 200 jobs are already created and that you only need to make 200 more to satisfy the TIF agreement. Is that correct?
What I'm indicating is that we made a commitment and we are on course to exceed that commitment. I don't know if you're objecting to us hiring people or where you're going with the question.
I just told you where I'm going with the question. I said that the 200 people were supposed to be, as a result of the new building, you hired 200 people within the time that the building isn't even complete yet. And there were also additions to the premises that were going to be put in place even as we were touring the facility. So I want to know how many of those jobs were the result of the TIF and how many of the jobs were outside of the TIF. And I'm trying to understand your claim that these 200 jobs should be counted as part of the TIF.
What I'm indicating to you is if we had not made the decision based upon the offer that was made by the town of Walpole, then we would not have made the same hiring decisions that we have already made. And as a result of the decision that was made to expand here in Walpole, we have hired 200 plus people.
And will you hire 400 more between now and 2025?
We will fulfill our commitment.
Which means you'll hire 200 more before 2025.
That is our commitment. We expect to hire. And we have been consistent with our language and we've been consistent with our commentary. We expect to hire many more than 400. But we are not going to commit to more than 400. That's what we've made the commitment on. That's what the deal was.
Now, the previous 10% TIF that was for the earlier project, is that now completed?
I believe it expires this year, I believe, so.
And has the $40,000 in donations been made yet?
The donation was made, yeah.
How was that
Some-
money used?
I think we still have a considerable amount left. Let me check.
And was there any, there was also a commitment to try and help us find, to make applications to other sources of philanthropy within the Siemens organization. Has that part of the commitment been met as far as the previous TIF?
I believe they've worked with the school department on a few things. I personally haven't worked with them on that. I can't speak to that.
Do you have any input into that part of the previous TIF?
So I happen to negotiate the previous TIF as well as the current TIF, yes.
And has there been any work to find,
So to the best of my knowledge, we
applications?
have met or exceeded all of the donations associated with that TIF. We certainly have completed that 40,000 that was referenced earlier, very early on in the life of the TIF. I believe it was within the first 2 years, but I'm not certain of that. And with respect to additional contributions to the town, we have been consistently participating with in-kind donations, participating in the school systems as well as other monetary, but I do not have those records.
but there was also some language that you were going to make a good faith effort to identify programs and with Siemens charitable organizations that the town could try to plug into. Has any effort been made to do that?
I believe it has.
Okay. Could you please, at some point, just give us an update as to what measures have been made, what activity has been done on that aspect of the previous TIF?
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
One other question.
go ahead.
How much is the anticipated, how much is anticipated to be spent on renovations at this point?
I do not have that specific breakdown. What I'm telling you is that the overall investment is expected to be $300 million. Approximately 50% of the overall spend will be in the new buildings that you see here, a little bit less than 50%. The other will go into process equipment as well as the renovations. Much of the renovated space is the more expensive space.
Okay. So do you expect that you're going to meet the requirement? Has there been a change in the scale of that project from the anticipated scale at the time of the negotiation of the TIF?
No,
Anticipate that you're going to reach the full amount of the required increases to the value of the property, which is, you are going to expend $230 million on construction and renovation of the facilities.
I believe so, yes.
Thanks,
So,
Nancy.
David, I don't think you were you asking when we expected to complete that work as well?
No, I was asking, within
just the amount?
the initial period of the TIF,
Yep.
your obligation is to spend $230 million.
Correct.
And you expect that you will be doing that for the initial period, which no penalty comes into play until 2025.
Correct, correct.
You will spend that amount of money?
Yes, we expect to have that entire amount spent by 2020.
What are you doing with the neighborhood as far as communication and keeping them updated?
Okay, so we have had routine communications, especially during the early phases of the construction, where there was a lot of work done with the adjacent, I shouldn't say not the adjacent property, the property that is adjacent to their properties. So that communication came in the form of both personal visits from our people, talking about what the changes were, offering assistance with any relocation of their property off of our property back onto their property, including relocation of sheds onto new foundations at no cost to the neighbors. We have also sent multiple mailings to them, letting them know what was going to be happening, timing of when that was going to happen, that type of activity. We anticipate having another communication going out to them a little bit later this spring when we start an activity that is particularly noisy What you can't see on this particular graphic that's shown is we have what's called a ballasted roof. That's where you have stones on top of a roof that has to be replaced. The process for removing the stones is a very, very noisy process. So part of the communication plan is to communicate to the neighbors, this is our intent, this is the timing, hours that we're expecting to do it, et cetera, so to continue to communicate with the neighbors about what is going to be happening.
Great. If you could keep that commitment to keeping the neighborhood updated on what's going on, it would be much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Just a follow-up to one of David's questions, I can confirm the 40,000 was received. I just checked the sheets, so we did get that.
Great. Thank you.
You mind if I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I'd just like to say thanks for the update. I think it's actually very exciting that you've hired so many people as you're ramping up. I think that's great for, you know, the residents of Walpole who work there, and Norfolk County, state of Massachusetts, even Rhode Island. So I'm a big believer in, you know, job creation helps everybody. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of that right now. I know you started the project when the economy wasn't floating so high. So I think it's a great thing to see the job creation and know that it will continue into the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. With the time being 8:10, we're going to go to open forum. Anybody here for open forum?
Hello.
Hello, if you can state your name and your address.
Sure. It's Brooke Kafka, and it's 389 North Street.
Great.
So I'm fairly new to Walpole, but I came here tonight in hopes that time can be allotted in the town's agenda for the discussion and hopefully amendment of the town's current leash law. Having the definition of leash changed in the bylaw, or to simply allow certain portions of Adams Farm, or to allow another town property to allow well-behaved dogs off leash. I think control over your dog can mean various things, whether it can be voice command, controller, etc. The responsibility of the dog should fall directly on the owner, where they should have full control over their pets and not be held to a hard 7-foot leash requirement. We're new to the town, but we enjoy going to other surrounding towns that have amended this leash law so that we can enjoy it and our dogs can enjoy nature and what it has to offer. This seems to be working in other towns, and we hope that as residents in Walpole that we can enjoy it in our town as well.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. By way of open forum, because it's not on the agenda,
Yep.
we can't talk about it.
Yep.
However, I'm sure my wife put you up to this because she shares in your thoughts. However, Cindy, if we can get this and get John to come in and have this as a agenda item, I don't want to break open meeting law. It would be worthwhile, right? And please.
Who would be involved in coming to, would it be
John Spillane.
Adams
and
Farm Committee?
Adams Farm Committee.
Someone from Adams Farm?
Yeah.
I mean, just for us to think ahead to whoever would have to help in making
Yeah.
a decision.
Our bylaws.
You need to get it on the town meeting warrant also, eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I
Eventually,
think it
yeah.
would need to be investigated first.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even mind having a conversation
Right.
and then setting up the protocol.
Because
Right.
up at the Adams Farm, there is a problem with people not adhering to leash law, so.
Right.
Already.
And let's not get into too much detail tonight, but let's have that on next agenda if we could, if John is available, and someone from Adams Farm. But there's also the town forest, there's also other
I would think
areas.
looking at the bylaw and talking to John first before we even then went outside of that.
Great.
I don't want to get into too much discussion, but we would need Adams Farm Committee because they might
Yeah,
say ixnay to anything.
But they might be a part of town for, any.
Right, yeah.
Just a
Right.
future agenda.
Yeah,
instead of-
please.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Okay. Anybody else for town, for open forum? Sir?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Scott McKeon. I've been a resident of Walpole since 1993. I'd like to echo Brooke's sentiments about dogs. You know, a lot of dogs in this town, the majority of dogs in this town are just happy-lucky pets that just want to run around. And instead, you got the doggy 5-0 going up and down the trails giving people tickets. I think that's wrong. I think it should be changed so that, you know, non-aggressive dogs can have fun there. You know, a lot of people enjoy that. I don't know about you, but I have immense joy from watching my dogs run around and playing with other dogs and, you know, just having a good old time. And it's a shame that the penalties and the actions are so harsh over there. I'd just like to see that change.
Right, and your address just for the...
My address is 36 Delaney Drive, Walpole.
Great. Thank you, sir, and when we have it as an agenda item, we'll have
Fantastic.
a lively
Thank you
discussion.
for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, no one else is here for open forum. We'll go into new business. Jim? Oh, actually, no. We'll start with the appointment of Tim Higgins as the MAPC representative. Is Tim here?
No, he went EDC earlier.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Tim Higgins to the MAPC as our representative.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Just question. Yes? Question?
No, yeah,
Okay.
please.
So in looking at the letter, that position is the standard rep for that
Yes,
board?
prior to Tim, it was Liz, and then prior to that, it was Stephanie.
And we don't, do we only have one rep on that board? We don't put like a citizen person
No,
or?
only one representative.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry? Right, I saw that.
Great. Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
500. We'll do the furnish and install an electric grid fee.
I'll make a motion, we can do it.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to award contract number 2018-09 to install electric grid bee mixing system at North Tank, OPR Tank, and 2 South Tanks to Methuen Construction for a lump sum of $148,144.
I'll second that for discussion. I don't have any personally, but
Just a few comments here. We did receive 2 other bids on that. This company from Methuen was the lowest and most responsive bidder. Rick was comfortable with the bids that were submitted and recommend favorable action on them.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
500. Vote for the reappointment of the applicants to the boards and committees as listed and highlighted document.
I will make a motion to reappoint committee members as listed in document 3-5 for another term on their committee or board, except for holding the constables.
I'll second that.
Discussion, please.
I think I've had this question before for other board and committee appointments. What is our process? I think our process is that we just reappoint without opening it up, the seats. Who should I be directing my question to?
We did think this was going to come up. So.
Yes.
After the last discussion we had about this, I posted on our webpage all the openings, and I told people if they were interested in any of the positions, I highlighted them in yellow. For the people whose terms are expiring, they were to get an application to us by a certain date, and it's been up there for over 6 months, so.
Okay, and nothing.
Nothing. And
Okay.
I would note that one of the boards you have been interested, the MBTA Advisory Board, we've had a vacancy on that for 6 months at least. So.
Right. Someone expressed interest in that to me, and I think they were going to put in an application. Again, I have no skin in the game on that, but I agree that there seems to be obviously a lack of interest. So we're lucky to have the individuals who want to keep re-upping. But we probably should look at how to get the information out there, just to generate some interest, because I think it's a burden on some of these people.
Well,
And
it's
then
the
when they
same
finally-
people, it's a generality, but many times it's the same people. And I love when new people
Right, right.
sign up and give their time.
And when one of these individuals finally has enough,
Right.
then we're stuck with,
Right.
but anyway, not on you, but maybe we can all brainstorm as to
Well taken.
reaching out individually.
Better way, let me know, but.
Yeah.
No, I know. There's,
Associates,
well, one of
when and if they're interested.
the things that we've not done, and this may not be the time for discussion, but we don't have anything, a bulletin board for stuff like this up at the, I don't believe, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, at the library. And this might be something that we might want to talk about with the library
Yeah.
trustees to actually have, because not everyone comes to, even if you posted something at town hall, not everyone comes to town hall, and if they do, they're focused on their task at hand.
With a description would be great.
Yeah, I just think we should work with the library trustees, maybe have them come in here, or have Jim or Cindy talk with someone there to see what we can put up just for something like this that would
Yeah.
generate interest, people walking in.
We can do that.
And one thing about, I used to remember seeing, and I haven't seen it lately, but I don't know if it's still there, whether it's, when there's, instead of dead air on the cable station, they used to put a scroll of
Right.
these.
I used to be able to do that because I had the ability to do that, and I would list all the open, I don't have that ability.
So why don't we ask
Oh.
Walpole Media to do that?
I'm
I can-
putting what we had back up. We're gonna get the scroll back.
Okay,
Oh, good.
We had a guy leave who was in charge of that, sort of.
okay, so let's make it
Okay.
ongoing.
That'd be great.
And I don't, what other town mailings do? We do,
Sewer and water bills, the
I
excise
mean,
tax.
could we also, once a year, say, hey, have you ever thought of serving on a committee flyer in the mail?
We could put something out,
Okay.
if you'd like, yeah.
Yeah, not too much, like, have you thought of it, and this is how
Right.
you
Maybe
get the
refer them to
info.
a specific web
Right.
page.
Right,
Something,
but-
that's a good point.
I
Ed.
could
Not
also
like
put an
extra
ad in
pages
the
to put in
paper saying
recycling.
that. I was thinking of that
Yeah.
today. I could put an ad that says, go to this website, blah, 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 and look at the openings,
Yeah.
if you're interested.
Okay. Yeah, so let's brainstorm on it. Fair point.
We could do that.
You just
You just
brought
have to do a
something up though
press
that
release
concerns
once.
me. Why does Cindy not have access to what you had access to before? What's
Yeah,
changed?
I used to put, like, dog licenses are due,
Mhm.
when the meetings were.
Right, what's changed?
They upgraded the software.
They upgraded
yeah.
the software, they upgraded all the equipment.
Will you eventually have the
Downgraded
access
you.
that you had before?
I don't think I have.
Or if you
That's been
don't.
like this for what, a few years now.
Yeah, a few years. If you don't, let's
What-
at
what-
least get the information.
I can give it to, well, I used to give it to Luke, but he's going.
Yeah, so we can give it to Patrick once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
So we should just send a memo that
That's
Cindy
important
is in
that-
charge
I mean,
of
that she-
dictating that.
I can do that. No, I used
No,
to.
no, I know, but.
Yeah, but meaning,
When the dog license was due, I'd let people know when there was activities and
Good.
events going on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so
and I'm
Jim-
sure Jeff,
we should let them
Yeah.
know that Cindy's in charge of letting them know what needs to go up.
Okay. Jeff works well with us, so I'll make
Yeah,
sure
he
he.
does.
fair point.
I
But I
can do
mean, there's
that.
just, right.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
500.
What about the constables? Do you have to
Someone
do-
else needs, yeah.
I will make a motion to renew the constables,
I'll
To
second it.
reappoint.
to reappoint the committee members as listed in document 3-5 for another term on their committee board.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Oh, Ann has a question.
Sorry, Ann.
So this is actually interesting to me because I don't know much about this. Are these individuals, are these seats actually a committee or are they actually constables?
Constables.
Constables.
So the, Mr. Weber, McCarthy, and Deputy Chief McKenzie,
Right.
they are current constables.
And John Carmichael, but they're non-civil. The police are
I-
non-civil. So they do stuff for us,
Okay.
but.
Because I'd like to, can I be educated on
Yeah, sure.
the constable program or what we do? And maybe you're the person to educate me. Yeah, get someone, or,
Because he's never been civil.
how many constables does the town of Walpole have?
We have those two gentlemen, those are our two constables that go out, and they serve papers, they're hired by attorneys to go out and serve.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Mr.
our
Weber and Mr.
police-
McCarthy.
Yeah,
Rich
Rich.
The
McCarthy.
warrant, when I need a constable to come over and sign the warrants and stuff.
Okay, so they're already constables, and
Right.
Deputy Chief McKenzie is
And-
going to be a constable, or,
He has been.
No, he is, as
Like-
Chief Carmichael is as well.
right, because I know it's different. I know police officers don't have
Right.
civil process authority, but that's all kills two birds with one stone.
Right. I can do town process, but not civil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even by
outside.
being reappointed, you cannot.
Right.
Is there a need for additional constables? Are these the only two that are up, or are there others that are?
I think I've never heard anybody complaining that there's not enough constables. At one time, we had 3, but I don't think there was enough work for all of them, so the towns would have considered to stay with the 2.
I get the impression that there's not a lot of work.
I'll talk to you.
This is not, if they're doing, cannot be, there may be other people interested, but there's never been, I don't think there's.
There doesn't seem to be a need for additional constables. Do they do they pay for their own bonding?
They have to pay for their own bonding, yeah.
Okay.
They don't really work for us.
Right, no, I sort of like a freelancer,
Yeah.
even though we swear them in.
Yeah.
So will they be coming in to be sworn in again?
They'll have to, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right,
Great.
thank you.
All in favor?
Educated.
Aye.
Aye. 500.
Abstain.
Oh, 401. Sorry.
Thank you for, both of you, for teaching me.
Okay, next on the agenda is the ratify the appointment of Patrick Shield as Assistant Town Administrator effective March 26, 2018. Jim?
Sure. It's with great pleasure that you mentioned Tom earlier this evening. It's great that we're going to have someone who can step right into this position.
If we vote.
If you ratify this.
Right.
I
I
know
have
Patrick's out there
reservations.
in his suit sweating. I think Patrick's...
Just for the TV audience, he is in a suit and he always sweats, so it has nothing to do with this.
Patrick has been a great addition to the Recreation Department since coming on almost 3 years ago. He's really turned that department around. He works great with the Brendan Croak, the Assistant Director, and the Recreation Committee. He's stepped in and filled in when I've needed him to fill in as the Acting Council on Aging Director when the previous director left. He's stepped in and filled in for the Economic Development position when Liz left without any additional pay. And he's always willing to step up and take on additional projects. It really was a no-brainer on my part to have Patrick step into the position. I know he's here tonight. I know he'd like to make a couple of comments to the board, if that's okay with you, or is it okay?
Sure. Mr. Shields, welcome.
Good evening. How are you? Thanks for having me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your kind remarks. Just by way of some background, I've been working on behalf of Walpole residents for pretty much my professional career, starting, I think as some of you may remember, at Stop and Shop, working customer service for my first part-time job. So these last few years, I've had the pleasure of working for the town and the Recreation Department, where we've put together a great team, reevaluated our mission, and have been working toward improving the quality of life for Walpole residents since. We do a lot of great programs around town, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done and my team has done over the rec department. Previous to this, I worked, as I think you know, at the State House. I worked for then Senator Jim Timilty, working for Walpole issues then while going to graduate school at UMass Boston and actually serving on the school committee. So this is where my passion is. Working for Walpole residents is where my passion is. We've got a great community. We've got a great team here at Town Hall. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully, subject to your ratification tonight, continuing the mission.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to mention, Patrick, that something that has been fabulous about you is, as Jim touched on, that when there's a need in town and something isn't being done and there's a hole to fill, you step up. You don't walk away from it. You don't turn your head and not notice it and just stay in your department. You really have taken a leadership role and gone out there and gotten things done. And that hasn't gone unnoticed. You know, you aren't afraid. You make decisions. It's really nice to see that somebody, you've shown that you want to do more, and it's appreciated.
Great, thank you.
What?
Yeah, I just, it's been a pleasure to watch you grow and mature into this position. I thought you always did a good, I don't remember you from Stop and Shop days, so, but I remember when you were Senator Timilty, you know, when we had issues, we could give you a call and you would help work through. And I know that you keep your contacts alive, which I think is important to the town, that we have as many contacts at the state level as possible. And I know you'll continue to nurture those relationships and, you know, try to get all the best for the town of Walpole, within Walpole and, you know, with state money. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah.
When I was on the personnel board, I saw firsthand that you're a very talented individual and really an asset. You were an asset to the rec department. I was really impressed with what you did with the rec department in terms of the reorganization and the reorg chart and revising job descriptions and really taking a holistic approach to these salary schedules and really looking at it with, it looked like an objective eye and not just continuing on the same old, you know, you really looked at it and tried to make it a leaner, meaner department. So I can say firsthand that I've seen your work. It's unfortunate, I wish I had been here at our last board meeting. I feel like I missed out on the interviewing process and just sort of the selection process. So I'm not sure what was involved in that, but I am happy that you are on board.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Upon hearing Tom Gregory was going to resign, I think, to my mind, your name came up, and obviously to the more important person, Mr. who has more close daily interaction with you, the town administrator, apparently came to his mind first. So I think, you know, I kind of blocked a previous rise in change in your in the before, and I think it worked out well because I think this is a better fit and will be good for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. And finally, I've been a big fan of Patrick Shields for a very long time. So for me, this is just the logical next step in your career. And, you know, I want you to learn, and I want you to keep the passion, and I want you to keep on being committed to having Walpole be your passion as well. So,
of course.
And then 3-4 years from now, we'll replace Jim with you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for that vote of confidence.
3 to 4 is that what we said?
3 to 4.
All right, I'll put it on my calendar. Thank you.
So anyway, with that, you want
I could just, actually, before you, I just want to recognize the team at the Recreation Department. You know, we have had a lot of success these past few years, all of which couldn't have been done without their help and without their dedication to the town, too. So I just want to mention Brendan Croak, Ariel Carney, Lauren Maycumber, Wolf, and Lauren Antonetti over at the Rec Department, and everybody else that's kind of helped in. You know, we have as many as 200 people that work at the part-time staff members that work at the Rec Department over the summertime. So I just want to recognize everybody from the Rec Department because we have had a lot of success there.
Yeah, they have done
all of which with their help. So.
A really wonderful job.
Great. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Can you name all 200? Or?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. You don't have to, but
I'll filibuster you all night.
I'll make a motion to ratify the town administrator's appointment of Patrick Shield as the new assistant town administrator effective March 26, 2018.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
500. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Terrific. The Society of St. Vincent.
I will make a motion to approve the request for the Society of St. Vincent de Paul to hold a 5K walk run on June 2nd, 2018 at 10 a.m.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
500. The capture vehicle exhaust system for the fire station.
I will make a motion to award bid contract number 2018-10, source capture vehicle exhaust system. Am I forgetting anything for Central Fire Station?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Just one note on that one. We did receive 2 bidders on that one. The other bidder was non-responsive. He didn't complete all the paperwork, and he was higher than this person, so we're not losing out there.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 500. Selectman Salvatore?
Vote to accept a gift from the United Church of Walpole to the Public Safety Department in the amount of $100. It came with a letter of thanks from Reverend Flowers, who was wanted to thank the department for the training that took place in regards to mass shooter situations, which the police chief and and the deputy, I believe, took part in.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0-0. With that, we'll go to the town administrator's report.
Sure. A couple items to cover this evening. Weekend storm, DPW, police, and fire did a great job over the weekend. They were going nonstop. I worked with the police department to serve as the contact for Eversource. I was not impressed with their response, especially initially. They were very slow. It was clear that they were really tapped out as far as resources. Saturday, they did have some crews from New Hampshire down servicing, I know, on Oak Street and over near Stop and Shop, the gas station over there, but the response was slow. And that's that. The Fields Workshop, Patrick and I hosted a Fields Workshop last week with the various presidents and vice presidents from the youth field groups, the users. It was well attended. They seemed pleased that we were moving forward with the Route 1A field design. They were able to talk to some of Bob LeBlanc, Drew Hand, and Bob O'Brien about some of the upcoming treatments to the fields and what's going to be expected for the spring. It went well. The Finance Committee, they've been meeting regularly on Monday and Thursday nights. Last night they completed their review of the DPW and public safety budgets. They're moving on Thursday night to the water and sewer budget and to some of the articles. So if you're interested in some of the water sewer stuff, feel free to attend. The police station, the chief mentioned they're going to be moving operations over there in the beginning of April. That's coming along very well. PBC has been doing an outstanding job staying on top of everything, along with Compass, our project manager. I'm sure once the police department's in there and the parking lot is paved, there's been some talk of having a grand opening ceremony and taking people through tours on a Saturday or Sunday. We'll let the board know when that event is scheduled. We'll let Congressman Lynch know and everyone. Parking. We received a request last week from the woman who owns the quilt shop to free up some spaces, along with Ricardo, who owns Jalapenos. After talking to both chiefs, they were comfortable with releasing a line of parking right in back of the new fire station. We lifted the signs out that said public safety, and I expect that this problem will be alleviated a little bit more when the police move out of there. So we continue to work on parking. We're working, Chris Johnson, our assistant town engineer, showed me a new set of plans for the where the temp ops is going to be at the temp ops is for the fire station. We're going to get about 30 spaces out of that, and we'll probably get a credit on the project construction because the contractor owns ripping it back up and putting grass there, but obviously they're going to save some money. We're going to need some guardrails there, so I think it'll be a give and take in that one. And both chiefs briefly mentioned school security. We did meet with Link and his team last Friday. During the storm, I actually have our DPW going and doing a complete inventory of all the exterior doors in all the schools. I'm more or less concerned about some of the older doors that are rusty and you can just pull open with a good tug. Don Anderson's doing that for me. And he's also, at the request of the chief, doing the same for the interior doors, making sure that everything locks and all the rooms are numbered. So this thing in Florida really scared a lot of people, opens a lot of eyes, and I want to make sure we're covered. So that's about it.
I do want to mention and commend all of the town for their work on the storm we had. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have another storm tomorrow. And I know we have limited resources, but the job that we did with the high winds, thank God we didn't get the flooding that other municipalities got in their towns, but I know it wasn't easy, so our congratulations on that, and let's keep our fingers crossed that this will be one of the last snowstorms of the year.
I did get a lot of feedback from residents of town, and they really had a lot of praise for the DPW getting out there and removing trees. I mean, you can't be everywhere at once, all in 1 hour, but.
We just don't have the resources.
Within
yeah.
a couple of days, they were out there pulling up trees off of roads, so I did have a couple.
But is there anything we can do about Edison's response, or lack of, not Edison,
Yeah, can we
Eversource's
get,
lack
we
of?
get them in at some point,
Like, that's
just
ridiculous.
They have a
reiterate.
request to me, actually, they submitted it last week to discuss their plan. I think it's on South Street.
On South Street again?
So
The place that
we're going to
looks
use
like
this as an excuse to really get them in and talk
Yeah.
about their response to town. because
Unacceptable.
It was.
It really was, and quite frankly,
Make sure they bring everybody in,
Yep.
all of Eversource.
everybody.
Well, and no matter what else is going on in other towns, they've got to have a couple of crews here. I mean, they
Like one.
they launch from here.
Right.
We had enough damage to keep a couple of crews busy for a long time.
Yes.
And you just hate to see no crews in town for a long
Right.
period of time.
Especially our town.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
And yet they want us to
Right,
make their site larger.
right.
So
So,
they can park more cars that respond to other
Right.
places.
please get
Yes.
them in.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there, have they removed trees? I mean, I would imagine a lot of it has to do with trees pulling down the wires from the
Right.
storm. Have they, I know that there's been a lot of trees cut down in town. Is that Eversource doing it, or was that the town doing it?
The Stanley tree
Yeah.
trucks, that's Eversource.
Okay.
They've been in doing maintenance, because one of my questions to Drew and to Bob Blank is, are they just missing some of these? And
But can they do more? Can they really cull out, or do they have to get permission from the property owner?
No, I think they were out doing it. I think there obviously
They did
was
a
more that they
lot.
could do, because we've had a lot of problems. I mean, North Street, Summer Street, so those were probably the two. Oak Street, but that wasn't a tree.
South Street.
South Street, yeah.
South Street where they're on.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking over there.
So maybe they could be more, I want to say ruthless in their culling of the trees and really just, maybe
Right.
that will be a little preventive.
Also, the double poles. There's a ton of double poles.
Yeah,
Washington
why?
Street is double pole heaven. So maybe they can really get on top of that
Right.
this spring and summer.
So let's get them in, and
We are.
let's get a
We will.
laundry list of things to approach them on.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jim.
I have a question about that, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
When Eversource is doing work, are they paying the details?
They do pay the details, yes.
So, during the time we were waiting for Eversource to show up, will they pay details?
That's on us, on the emergencies. So,
Is it something we can talk to them about? Or
It is.
does it make
I
a
will-
contribution of some kind to the schools or something in lieu of, or to the department? Because it's certainly, I know on my street, they sat there for quite a long time. There was no, I thought they were working up the street, because I can't see it. They weren't there for a day and a half.
Yeah.
They were just guarding a pole. And that was a serious situation. That pole, the highest voltage wires were 4 or 5 feet from the ground, and very dangerous
Unacceptable.
situation for days. So I wish we could fall back on that. And then on the parking, I did get I went to the senior center the other day, and parking certain days around here, as you've seen, has been crazy. They're looking for some kind of, maybe a few spots for not handicap, but people with limited capacity, some elder spots near the state. I know it's near the senior center, just so that they don't have to walk as far, that maybe we can get.
let me see,
Yeah,
see if
please.
we can mark it off, similar to what we did to the 50.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
a
just
little
do
bit,
it.
just-
Point well taken.
I don't know how many, but I'm sure some of them can walk a little bit, but, but there are people without handicap plates that have,
Mobility
limited
issues.
ability to move.
Yeah,
so.
you could put something maybe around where the buses park, senior parking only, senior center parking only, something, yeah.
So about the parking, what is the plan going forward once the fire department is up and operational in terms of fire department personnel parking? Will there be assigned spaces for fire department personnel only, similar to what we had before, but a little bit more with more
There
clarity?
is definitely assigned spaces. Chief, can you talk to that?
Yeah, it's within the confines of our area, so that'll be all cordoned off.
Okay.
There'll be parking spots on the inside of the island for us.
Okay, how many spaces will there be?
I'm not sure. I can find out for you, but I don't know.
Okay, no,
It's enough to handle our staff.
for each shift.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, you had an idea about the double pole thing?
Yeah, I can actually answer some of your in-stock questions if you,
Jim,
if you
please go
want me
through
to.
me. We'll
Sorry,
ask this question.
sorry.
If you want me to.
Yes, please.
Okay, so on the double poles actually fall on us at the fire department. So the ones on Washington Street, all of those poles that were done, we've done approximately half of them already on the transfers. We started in the far end down on Water Street, and we came down Water to Wash, and then back down with all those new poles that they put in. We didn't know that they were going to be doing that. The reason that they're hung up and that they can't do anything with it until we do it is our fire alarm wire is on that pole, and it's not being used as fire alarm anymore, but what it does do is they lashed on to our old fire alarm wire with the fiber. It goes to the Boyden School, South Walpole Fire Station, it goes to some of the pump stations. So when they did that and they lashed onto our wire, we're still responsible for it. So until we move it, they won't touch that pole. They won't even schedule the other people to move do their transfers. We will get back on that as soon as the weather breaks and finish up Washington Street. I know there's many others in town. The 1A project's another one that we have to get the wire off on 1A. It's all dead. We're not using it anymore. They will not remove our wire, so we have to get out there and do it. We just haven't had a chance to get all of it done, so.
It makes sense. I noticed they were half poles, so.
So just so that
Okay.
you understand that.
Yep.
And aren't beating them up too
Yep.
bad. I mean, you can ask the question, but that's
Oh,
what
we
they're gonna.
still will,
That's what they're
but-
gonna tell you for an answer on that.
That's okay.
So, and as far as the vegetation of the trees, they have a very strict guideline that they follow on that. It's 10 up, 10 across the top. They will not impede beyond that. Some of the trees that we had actually fell from within that area out onto it, even on some of the areas that they had already cleared, so.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of big trees,
Yeah,
big, tall trees.
their response is a big-time issue. It goes beyond this storm. I had an incident in the storm that we had back on January where I asked for a response from them, and I basically got pushed off to someone else and never got a response. One of the streets up off of Eldor Drive lost their power for days on end, and they were non-responsive, and I never did get an answer, so.
Great.
Have they been responsive at fires when you ask for electric to be cut, or? have you-
Not always. So we actually had the fire at the Key High 2 years ago. Same thing, we called for them to cut the utilities, they never showed up. We were actually clearing the scene when the operator came in and said, "What are you guys doing?" And we said, "Where have you been?" So,
Could we get some data from both departments before we have our,
sure.
you know, like how long people were stuck on details, how many trucks were around, history of things
Well, I
like
mean,
that?
this goes back years. I mean, we've had meetings with
Well,
them
maybe
before.
just like 2 years.
When we had that hurricane that turned into a tropical storm, I was stuck on South Street myself for 9 hours.
Yeah.
Guiding live wires. Guy showed up, said, "I'll be back," and never came back, so, we had a meeting at the time, with some of the higher-ups from Eversource.
We should ask for an ombudsman, is that the right word, an ombudsman? That we can have one direct person, because I would think they'd be required to have
They
one.
have a local representative.
Right, that we should have his cell phone number?
I do. and I
Okay,
had-
I mean, again,
Doesn't seem to help.
so whatever, yeah, maybe we could have him.
They give you a
Dealing with
voicemail.
2 other women
Maybe they could
during the
come to
storm,
a-
too, and I had their cell phones, but they just couldn't get me answers, so.
Great.
Just one other thing, and I know we can't discuss it because it's not on the agenda, although I thought it was on the agenda. The Community Compact Grant for the study.
Yes, we
Was that-
received it, it was awarded, and I figured we'd reach out to Harry, Bruce Aids and the Chamber of Commerce, see if they're interested in participating in that. So we just got the notification, I think it was last week.
Good.
We got it. And just to answer Ann's questions, there is 11 designated parking spots for fire personnel on the fire site.
And they'll just park there, and the municipal lot will be for
The downtown business owners.
downtown business owners and the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah, and there's gonna be even more. We projected 237 spaces with the addition of the 30 at Blackburn, up to 267, and I'll see what else we can fit in on the site,
Thank you, Jim.
compared to 187 before.
Good. Okay, thank you. With that, we're going to move into executive session. I hereby declare that under General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy with respect to the following: conduct strategy for collective bargaining with the dispatcher union, conduct strategy with respect to possible litigation as in discussion in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the town's position, that a discussion of the foregoing in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, and that the Board of Selectmen shall return to open session for the sole purpose of adjourning the meeting.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote. Mr. Salvatore?
Aye.
Ms. McKenzie?
Aye.
Ms. Regosta?
Aye.
Mr. Gallivan?
Aye.
Mr. Kraus? Aye. We're now in executive session. Thank you.